Listen to the entire torture story, and it will surprise you. I never planned to become the monster they fear, but life has a way of twisting intentions into horrors. The Australian outback, vast and unforgiving, is my hunting ground. No one ever thinks they'll disappear out here, not until it's too late. It all began with a trip to Creepypasta, the opal mining town where the sun scorches the earth, and people live underground to escape the relentless heat. The town had its fair share of secrets, but none as dark as mine. The desert had a way of swallowing the unworthy, and I made sure they stayed buried. I had been trailing my next target for weeks. Emily, a travel blogger, captivated by the desolate beauty of the outback. Her online posts were filled with picturesque sunsets and red sands, but they never captured the true essence of this land. I would show her its darker side. Her routine was predictable. Sunrise hikes, midday rest, sunset photography. She stayed in a small, secluded cabin on the outskirts of town. It was perfect, no neighbors, no witnesses. I waited until twilight, the time when shadows stretch in the line between reality and nightmare. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I approached her cabin, knife in hand. The blade was an extension of my will, sharp and unforgiving. The wooden door creaked as I pushed it open, and I slipped inside, silent as the desert night. Emily was at her desk, editing photos on her laptop. She didn't notice me until it was too late. I moved quickly, grabbing her from behind, my hand over her mouth to muffle her screams. Her eyes widened in terror as I whispered in her ear, "Shoo, no one can hear you out here." I could feel her heartbeat racing, her body trembling. The thrill of fear was intoxicating, and I reveled in it. I dragged her to the floor, the knife glinting in the dim light. The first cut was shallow, a warning. Her muffled cries filled the room, a symphony of despair. I took my time, savoring each slice, each drop of blood. Her struggle grew weaker with every passing moment. The life drained from her eyes, replaced by a haunting stillness. I left her body there, a grim testament to the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of this land. The next day, I buried her in the desert, where the scorching sun would erase any trace of her existence. The outback is a cruel place, but it's also the perfect hiding spot. Bodies decompose quickly in the heat, and scavengers take care of the rest. Emily would be just another lost traveler, swallowed by the vastness of Australia. I cleaned up meticulously, leaving no evidence behind. The townspeople would whisper about her disappearance, but they would never find the truth. They would never know the terror that had walked among them. The thrill of the hunt never fades. Each kill is a masterpiece, a testament to my skill and precision. The outback is my canvas, and I paint it with blood. They say the desert has a way of driving people mad, but I know the truth. The madness was always inside me, waiting to be unleashed. As I sit by the fire, the flames casting flickering shadows, I wonder who will be next. The outback is vast, and there are always new victims to discover its dark secrets. The thrill of the hunt calls to me, and I cannot resist. The shadows of the outback hide many things, but they cannot hide from me. I am the darkness, the terror that walks among them. And I will continue to hunt, to kill, to revel in the fear and bloodshed. This land is mine, and I am its shadow. The days blended into nights, and nights into days. The desert had a rhythm, a pulse that only I could hear. My next target emerged from the ether of anonymity, a group of backpackers venturing into the outback for a taste of its raw beauty. They were young, naive, and blissfully unaware of the predator lurking in the shadows. They set up camp near a remote waterhole, laughing and sharing stories around a crackling fire. 4 of them, each with their own quirks and flaws. I watched from a distance, blending into the landscape like a ghost. They had no idea how close I was, how easily I could snuff out their lives. Night fell, and with it, the cloak of darkness I needed. I approached their camp silently, my knife gleaming under the moonlight. I started with the perimeter, slashing their tents to shreds, a warning of the chaos to come. Their screams pierced the night as they stumbled out, disoriented and terrified. I struck quickly, my blade finding its mark in the first one's throat. Blood sprayed in an arc, warm and sticky. His body crumpled to the ground, lifeless. The others scrambled, panic setting in. I relished their fear, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. The second one, a girl with long blonde hair, tried to run. I caught her by the arm, yanking her back with a force that dislocated her shoulder. She screamed, a high-pitched wail that echoed in the vast emptiness. I silenced her with a swift, deep cut across her stomach, watching as her insides spilled out. Her death was messy, a testament to the brutality I was capable of. The remaining two, a couple, huddled together, eyes wide with terror. I toyed with them, circling like a shark, enjoying the suspense. The girl whimpered, tears streaming down her face. The boy tried to protect her, but his bravery was futile. I lunged at him, the knife sinking into his chest repeatedly until his body went limp. I saved the girl for last. Her eyes met mine, a mix of fear and resignation. She knew there was no escape. I took my time, dragging the blade across her skin, savoring every scream, every drop of blood. Her agony was a symphony, and I was the conductor. When it was over, I stood amidst the carnage, the scent of death heavy in the air. The Outback had claimed more victims, their blood soaking into the red earth. I gathered their belongings, burning anything that could tie them to this place. Their bodies would be left for the elements, another mystery for the desert to swallow. I returned to my hideout, a secluded cave hidden from prying eyes. Inside, the walls were lined with trophies, mementos of each kill. Jewelry, clothing, photographs. Each item told a story, a testament to my work. I added the new items to the collection, a grim reminder of my unending thirst for blood. Days passed, and news of the missing backpackers spread. Authorities searched, but the Outback is vast and unforgiving. They found nothing, as they always did. The legend of the Outback Shadow grew, whispers of a killer haunting the desert. They feared me, and rightly so. I knew it wouldn't be long before more victims ventured into my territory. The thrill of the hunt was insatiable, a fire that burned within me. I was the darkness that lurked in the Outback, the terror that waited in the night, and I would continue to hunt, to kill, to revel in the fear and bloodshed. The Outback was my domain, and I was its shadow. The police presence increased around Cobra PD. Authorities set up checkpoints and patrols, trying to reassure the townspeople and deter any more bloodshed. But the Outback is vast, its secrets buried deep. They couldn't stop me. They couldn't even find me. My next target was different. More challenging. A group of experienced bushwalkers, seasoned, knowledgeable, and wary of the dangers that the Outback posed. Their leader, Greg, was a rugged man in his 40s with a reputation for navigating the most treacherous terrains. He'd be a worthy opponent. They camped near an abandoned mining site, its rusting equipment standing like skeletal sentinels against the stark landscape. The group was 6 strong, Greg, his second-in-command Linda, and 4 others. I watched them from a distance, learning their routines, their weaknesses. On the 3rd night, I made my move. The moon was a sliver, casting the land in a ghostly glow. I waited until they were asleep, then crept into their camp, my knife ready. The first one, a burly man named Steve, barely had time to react. I slit his throat with a quick, practiced motion, covering his mouth to stifle the gurgling noise. Blood poured over my hands, hot and slick. Linda was next. She was a light sleeper, and I had to be careful. I moved silently, the knife poised. She stirred just as I reached her, eyes opening in confusion. I plunged the blade into her chest, twisting it to ensure maximum damage. Her eyes bulged, a strangled gasp escaping her lips as she clawed at me in a futile attempt to save herself. The commotion woke the others. Greg emerged from his tent, flashlight in hand. The beam swept across the campsite, illuminating the carnage. He froze, eyes wide with shock and fury. He was quick, grabbing a metal rod from the remnants of the mining equipment. "Show yourself, coward," he bellowed, his voice echoing in the night. I slipped into the shadows, a predator toying with its prey. Greg moved cautiously, the flashlight casting long, jittery shadows. The remaining three huddled together, fear etched on their faces. I could sense their panic, their desperate need to survive. Greg was strong, but he was no match for my cunning. I used the terrain to my advantage, circling around and picking off the stragglers. A quick stab to the kidney here, a slash to the Achilles tendon there. The desert swallowed their screams, and the blood-soaked earth drank eagerly. It came down to Greg. He stood alone, panting, sweat dripping down his face. His friends lay dead around him, their lifeless eyes reflecting the horror of their final moments. "You can't hide forever," he snarled, swinging the rod in a wide arc. I emerged from the shadows, knife glinting. "I don't need to hide," I replied, my voice low and menacing. We clashed, the sound of metal against metal ringing out. Greg fought fiercely, his desperation fueling his strength. But I was relentless, my movements precise and deadly. I feigned left, then darted right, slashing his arm. He screamed, dropping the rod. I moved in for the kill, but Greg was not finished. He tackled me, and we tumbled to the ground, a tangle of limbs and blood. He punched, kicked, and clawed, his survival instincts kicking in. I laughed, a cold, mirthless sound, and drove my knee into his gut, winding him. He lay there, gasping, as I stood over him. "You fought well," I said, almost respectfully. Then, without hesitation, I drove the knife into his heart. His body jerked, then went still, eyes staring blankly at the sky. I stood, surveying the scene. The camp was a slaughterhouse, bodies strewn about like broken dolls. The Outback had claimed more lives, and my legend grew. I retreated to my cave, cleaning myself of the night's work. The authorities would find the bodies eventually, another unsolved massacre to haunt their nightmares. They would never understand the true terror that stalked the Outback. The thrill of the hunt lingered in my veins, a dark satisfaction that only bloodshed could sate. I was the shadow in the desert, the monster they feared. And as long as the Outback stretched its vast, unending expanse, I would continue to hunt. The Outback was my domain, and I was its ghost.